Hello, welcome again. We are covering the subject thermodynamics for civil services means IFS and various gate exams. And the next topic in the subject is properties of system. So the definition of property is a property of a system is a characteristics of system which depend upon its state but does not depend upon how the state is reached, like pressure, volume, etc. To understand this, suppose this is your PV diagram. Vertical coordinate is pressure and horizontal coordinate is volume. At this point, there is particular value of pressure and particular value of volume. This is your pressure, this is your volume. And this point is called state, and this pressure and volume are called properties of a system. So this defines the property. The property of a system is a characteristics. Characteristics means like pressure, temperature, volume of system which depends upon its state, which depends at this state the pressure is this, at different state the pressure is different, volume is different, which depends upon its state but does not depend upon how the state is reached, like pressure and volume. So this state can be reached by this process, by this process, by this process, but process doesn't matter. The point matters, and at that point, the properties like pressure, volume, temperature are called, or characteristic like pressure, volume, temperature are called properties of system. So there are two types of properties. One is your intensive property, another is extensive property. So intensive means inner. So inner properties are like pressure, temperature, which doesn't depend on mass. That is same for every mass. So we take a human body. So everywhere will have same temperature, same blood pressure. So it will not depend upon how bigger our body is or how smaller our body is. So that is an intensive property. So these properties do not depend upon the mass like pressure, temperature. Specific properties are intensive properties. Specific property means when we divide these extensive property by mass, then they will become specific property. Like specific volume, that is volume by mass. Specific enthalpy, that is enthalpy by mass. So their dependence on mass is cancelled out because this is specific. These are specific properties. Okay. These are the properties for per unit mass. Specific volume, specific enthalpy. So these are intensive properties. However, the volume and enthalpy are extensive property because they depend upon mass. So the now next definition is extensive properties. These properties depend upon mass of the system like internal energy, enthalpy and volume. If we take specific volume, it is intensive property, but if we take volume, then it is extensive property because it is dependent on mass. If mass is more, then volume will be more. If the density is yet intensive property. Next definition is state. So state is any point, or this is state, this is state, this is state. So this is related to property, so that's why we are covering here. So state, when all the properties of a system have definite value, the system is said to exist at a definite state. So here the pressure is constant, volume is constant, temperature is constant, then it is one of the state. Properties are the coordinate to describe the state of the system. So here properties P and B are the properties which describe this state. Any operation in which one or more properties of the system changes is called change of state. So here from 1 to 2 properties are changing. If any one of them is changing, if P is changing, if V is changing, if P is changing, then it is change of state. Any property is changing, then it is the change of state. Next definition is process. So the succession of state passed through during a change of state is called path of change of state. When the path is completely specified, the change of state is called this process. So here the this is your process. So here first this state is this, then this state is this, then this state is this. Then this path is completely specified because this is the path. This is the initial point, this is the final point. This final point can be reached in this path also or in this path also. But here the path is completely specified, then it is a process. It is completely specified, then it is called a process. Types of processes. There are two types of processes. First is flow process. The process is called a flow process in which the mass is entering and leaving through the boundary of the system. So these are flow processes like in open system. Non-flow processes, the process occurring in flow system is called non-flow process. Then the energy transfer takes place only. So these are non-flow processes. And next and the most important process in thermodynamics is quasi-static process. So quasi-static process is also called reversible process. The process in succession of equilibrium states and infinite slowness is its characteristic feature. So here this can be said as quasi-static process because here in between there are infinite number of states. These states are visible, but there are infinite number of equilibrium states. It means suppose we have temperature here at 30 degrees Celsius, and after slight change, so the temperature becomes 29.99999